Thank you for tuning into the Pops News broadcast. Tonight's story, family law attorneys. Incompetent at best, liars at well. Before I start, I want to make it clear that this is not a blanket statement of all family law attorneys, but it is the overwhelming majority of them. There are a handful of attorneys out there that are in it for the right reasons. Melissa Isaac of the Isaac Law Firm is one such attorney that I believe is an awesome person and attorney, and I wish there were more like her. Now, during the 86th Texas legislative session, the Family Law Foundation, or FLUF for short, sent out this Nazi-style propaganda pamphlet in attempts to lie to them about upcoming equal shared parenting bills. Are they just merely incompetent and don't understand third grade math? Or does their love of money force them to spread misinformation? I love the professionalism. Hey you, yes, you, really? And then there's the facts matter. They state that current law provides 179 days, 49%, when the non-custodial parent, and I so love that term, don't you, has possession. Then gives another whopper. In some years, there can be up to 200 days. They actually have the gall. Now, not to be confused with the guardian ad litems, you know, the ones that are paid to steal your kids, like this sexual deviant. Now, to say that the non-custodial parent would get 54.7%. Now, that's 200 divided by 365, which equals 0.547, and you move the decimal point over 2 places to the right to get that percentage. Now, that's for the attorneys out there that can't figure out the third grade math. I figured the mental dysfunction was limited to these two. Nope. The entire family law cult has this same brain deficiency. Their manifesto links to a Texas Family Law Foundation 4-part seminar where they learn to repeat this nonsense. Remember when I said Nazi-style propaganda? Here's a quick history lesson. Nazi Joseph Goebbels is attributed with this statement. If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. The lie can be maintained only for such time as the state, wink, wink, can shield the people from the political, wink, wink, economic, wink, wink, and or military consequences, well, we'll see what happens there, of the lie. It thus becomes vitally important for the state, wink, to use all of its powers, OAG, to repress dissent, for the truth is the mortal enemy of the lie, and thus by extension, the truth is the greatest enemy of the state. And the illusion of the truth can be a dangerous weapon in the hands of a propagandist like Joseph Goebbels, as we all learn. I mean, and we all know how that worked out for the Jews. Now, the videos are ripe with farcical nonsense, including this one where Cindy Bananarama says this.
Jonathan and Lynn, is that really our law as it exists right now is really top-notch. And that's because...
Well, Gina Kalani, may God bless her, had this to say.
And I looked at the schedule. Mm-hmm. So, and even if you did the summers where you did 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, it still equates to 89 versus 2. And so if you are given joint custody, I don't see how you can put that two together and say that that's equal.
Well, I believe we have somebody else who can answer some of your questions on that. I haven't done the math on the overnight numbers, but I look at it to see where we are equal and where we're not equal. Mm-hmm. We're fairly equal on the weekends. Essentially, it's every other weekend for parents.
Right, but during the week they don't have any access. That's not
every
equal.
Thursday night. Every Thursday night.
Wow, a Thursday?
Yes. Well, that which leaves Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. If you move one day, then you're to 50%.
Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, the other parent gets, and the other parent gets 1, 3, 5. Mm-hmm. So, or no, 2, 4, right? They get 2, 4. So primary gets 2, 4,
yes.
And every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and the secondary gets 1, 3, 5, and Thursdays.
Thursdays, yes.
That's
right.
not equal, and that's not in the best interest of the child.
Well,
fatality.
Of course, the FLUF spokesperson then goes on to put a slide up that really is the root of where they are at with all of this. And this is why I believe that they are not really incompetent, just evil. They acknowledge this. And they even state the old best interest of the child. Here is what she provided as public policy in her presentation. While I could spend hours and hours, well, and you know I will eventually, let's get to the highlights of their tomfoolery.
So we might do several times during a week. We might do maybe a Tuesday and a Thursday evening, and then maybe we'll do a first, third, and fifth weekend, because that's kind of a key language as you're about to see. And maybe we'll do a Saturday and a Sunday for several blocks of time, maybe 2 or 3 hours on Saturdays and Sundays, depending upon the block, depending upon the age of the child. First, third, and fifth weekends are really key, and you're going to see
Now
that
watch for the old bait and switch. Did you see it?
By the first Friday of each month.
And look how
It's
they
not
try
the
to
first
convince
Saturday,
themselves
it's the
that
first
they're
Friday.
right.
So when you're looking at this, you'll look at October, and actually October starts on the first day of the month. Saturday was actually the first, and you might think that that's the first weekend, and it's not. That actually, it's highlighted because it's the fifth weekend. It's the carryover because the 30th of September, or I guess it was 30th of September, was actually a Friday, which made it a fifth weekend in September. So the first was it's highlighted because it's part of a fifth weekend, but the first weekend in October is actually the 7th because that's the first Friday in October. So you got to count Fridays when you're looking at first, third, and fifth Fridays. You got to go by the first Friday of each month. Our standard possession order, if you highlight the days, looks much like this. Under a standard possession order, and this is just a regular standard possession order, it looks like this, and you'll see that the parent who is not the primary parent, because you have the primary parent is what I call them, that's the person who has the right to establish the primary residence of the children. It's really the parent who has the exclusive right to establish the primary residence of the child or children. The person who is not the primary, under the standard possession order, just regular standard, has possession of the children for 156 days under this regular standard possession order. Now, let's really kind of take a look at that and see what that is. The standard possession order, just the regular standard possession order, is the first, third, and fifth weekends from 6 on Friday to 6 on Sunday. Now, if your parents were divorced or if you were divorced, then you may know this, but there are people out there who don't know this. And so this is the actual standard possession order that everybody is talking about right now as exists currently in our law in Texas. The standard possession order includes Thursdays during the school year, not during the summer months, but during the school year, from 6 to 8 on Thursdays. The parent who's not the primary gets 30 days in the summertime of their choice. They can break that up into 2 separate periods, or they can take one 30-day chunk of time. And if they don't designate by a certain date, then their default is July. The parent gets either Father's Day or Mother's Day, depending upon their gender. And no, I don't want to discuss transgender issues right now in which they have to elect, because I'm not going there just yet. Our code doesn't discuss that yet, and maybe someday we'll do that, but we're not going there now. And then alternate, we alternate Thanksgiving every other year, and then we also, we split up the holiday, the Christmas holiday, depending upon whoever got Thanksgiving. So whoever got Thanksgiving then doesn't get the children until the second half of the Christmas break, and that second half of the Christmas break, the children are just exchanged on the 28th of December at noon. Now, if you do the math, under the standard possession order for this year, this calendar year, it's 43%.
And just like rat poison, and I'm going to give you a guess who the rat is, they put a bit of truth in there, but then they try to cover it with the poison. So then they pull their fuzzy math. They then build on the false information and move into standard possession with election and do some more magic.
Because we're not done.
And then to really go over the top, she refers to eyeball to eyeball time and throws this nonsense out.
Understand what we have and how much people get to see their children. I call it eyeball to eyeball time. I do that with my clients. Eyeball to eyeball time with your kids. So we have 179 days, but you get to add on some. Why? Because on my little highlighted calendar that we saw up there a little bit ago, I don't highlight those Fridays when they get to take their children to school. Now, I highlight the Fridays that are their Fridays because it's the first, third, or fifth, But I don't highlight those Fridays on Thursdays where they take their child, they get Thursdays overnight to Friday morning when school resumes. I don't highlight those Friday mornings when it's not their Fridays, right? So, but they get to spend Friday morning taking their child to school, having breakfast with them, dressing them. So I highlight those Fridays. If you talk about Fridays, they get to add those Fridays. Usually they're going to get either Memorial Day or Labor Day, one of those days, so you can add that on. Somewhere in there, usually there's some school holiday that they may or may not get in there. But usually also think about this. If they don't otherwise have possession of their child on their child's birthday, and that's just one child, if they have more than one child, they could get more days here, but they at least have one child or we wouldn't even be here. You get to at least add one day, potentially, and so potentially they could even have as many as 200 days of eyeball-to-eyeball contact with their child under our current standard possession order with the overnight election that our legislators came up with and that exists currently. I think it's a pretty awesome plan myself.
Lady, the only eyeball I'm getting is Forrest Whitaker eye listening to this nonsense. She's really pushing the ridiculously absurd idea that the dad, 90% of the time according to the Texas OAG, gets 200 eyeball-to-eyeball days with his kids, or 54.7%. Don't believe me? Let's just hear it from out of her own mouth.
So the big secret is, last I checked, 182.5 is obviously 365 days out of the year. So 182, divide it in half, right? So obviously 200 is more than half of the days of the year. So people are seeing their children eyeball to eyeball time more than half of the days of the year under the standard possession order. So it's kind of, to me, a no-brainer that this is a great plan.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. Well, at least one of us doesn't have a brain. And then to top it all off, and here she is making fun of parents who just want to see their kids.
Why is there all these people always complaining about the standard possession order? Oh my God, I'll never get to see my kid. Right? Because they always whine and complain. Trust me, because we see that as family lawyers and judges. That's what we hear.
Two final whoppers to touch on are the references to debts and best interest. The courts do not take into account debts. To say otherwise is just a plain bald-faced lie. I'll be providing a broadcast on this in a future episode. And the best interest of the child? Come on, you're embarrassing yourselves now. We have hundreds of peer-reviewed articles that show that equal shared parenting is what is best for the children. And the lawyers fight tooth and nail to shut it down because all they care about is money. In light of all the data, facts, figures, that is the only logical conclusion that they're in it for the money. Remember what I said about Nazi propaganda? You tell a big enough lie long enough? To summarize, here is their mythical SPO, Standard Possession Order calendar, that they turn into 156 days or 42.7%. And here is the real SPO calendar, which is really 86 days or 23.6%. And if you add in the additional 19 days, mom still gets a weekend in July for summer possession, the numbers are 105 days or 28.8%. But the attorneys say, what about Thursdays? I like Rep. Gina Kalani's response.
That's
Every Thursday night. Every Thursday night.
Wow, a Thursday?
Yes.
I like to give these attorneys dunce caps and just say that they can't do third grade math. But they continually spout the same lie in hopes they can bamboozle normal people. Hello, you're adding in 2 hours on Thursdays and counting them as full days. In the words of Mark Ludwig, y'all are a bunch of Mr. Magoo's. I don't have any answers as the lawyers have convinced themselves of their lies. Just like the Nazis convinced themselves that Jews weren't real humans. They are happily willing to destroy people for money. They don't care about people.
Possession order, oh my God, I'll never get to see my kid. right? Because they always whine and complain.
By the way, this pillar of the community is the one that sent the letter out to the people.
What were you telling that guy?
What?
I was wondering what you were talking to him about.
I'm talking to him about you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did I do to make you so defensive?
Are you taping?
I'm sorry?
Are you taping?
Am I taping you?
Are you taping? Period. Are you taping?
You're the one taking pictures of me?
You have electronic equipment on you that you're taping oral communications up here?
Taping oral communications?
Yeah, you understand oral communications? You get that?
I'm just wondering why you're so paranoid that...
I'm asking you if you're taping oral, if you're taping anybody up here.
I came up here to see what this was about.
Right. Are you or are you not?
You're the one taping me.
Yes, I took your picture.
Okay.
Also sent it to the DPS.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Well, if there's anything illegal about what I'm doing here, then I'm sure they'll take care of it.
I can assure you you're going to find out about it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I told your colleague the other day I wasn't sure about it, but that I'd do the research, and I did. So if you're taping people up here, then you've got a serious problem. So does your organization, and I will not stop. Understand?
I understand you loud and
Now,
clear.
Back away from me. Back away from me.
Okay. It just seems like you're going to hit me or something.
No, I wouldn't. If I was going to, you'd be on the ground right now. Back away from me.
Okay, I'm away.
No further communication with me, sir. Period.
Okay.
Here are some final thoughts from Representative Gina Kalani.
But we're talking about right now, we're talking about access to the children. And I think when you have two parents that are fit parents, to limit their amount of time is really unfair to the child.
Now, for the attorneys watching this, is money really all you care about? I will be talking about the rest of the letter in an upcoming broadcast. You know, I think the New Testament said it best in 1 Timothy 6, chapter 6, verse 10. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. For the politicians, lawyers, judges, and so-called public servants that claim to be Christian, you might really want to make 2020 the year you do a self-assessment and figure out whose team you're really on here. This is Dwayne with Pop News signing off.